Hello and welcome to this episode of the Metamorphosis. In today's episode, we are joined by a very special guest, Marthe Alva. She is an incredible force. She's been an apprentice of a shamanic path for the last 20 years. She is an experienced workshop holder. She works with cacao, breathwork, rituals, embodiment for both men and women. And she also works as a tantra therapist for women. And she is also the co-founder of the Sacred Womb Festival, which is happening yearly in Sweden. And I have attended the Sacred Womb myself twice, and the healing that takes place when we women come together in that space is just above and beyond, and it has shifted who I am as a woman in my core. So thank you so incredibly much for the work that you're doing. And thank you for joining me here today in the podcast. So, Marthe Alva, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for this invitation and for the introduction also.
Yes, my pleasure. So, I'm curious, how did you end up walking on this path that you're on as a medicine woman, a healer, founder of the things that you're doing?
Well, I was growing up in nature, very close to all the elements in a small village in the north of Norway. So I've always been close to the elements and close to spirit and playing a lot out in nature as a child with the little people and the fairies and all of that. And then in my teenage years, I experienced a lot of trauma and a lot of disconnecting from myself, and I lost myself in this sex, drugs, rock and roll kind of period where I was very shut down and very much abusing myself because I was also growing up with abuse. And then when I was 21, I was invited to ayahuasca ceremony. And it completely changed my life, where I traveled back to the source where we all come from, this unconditional love that is the very fabric of our existence. And I was bathing in that. And after that, I think I cried for like 2 years because I understood how far away from myself I had traveled. And I took out all my piercings. I stopped partying, and I just dedicated my life to heal and to... so that was like my 20s. From I was 21, for the next 10 years, it was like 70 ayahuasca ceremonies.
Wow.
And the prayer was always, I dedicate my life to healing, to be of service for the great awakening, for the greater good. And I surrender myself to be of service. So show me the way. Show me the way, Great Spirit. Show me the way. And life have just unfolded from that with all these challenges, which is kind of like an initiation, no? To go deeper, to reclaim the power and to let go of the personal story. And so it's not been like a linear journey. It is very much a spiral journey with many layers. But I think that was the starting point. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, thank you for sharing. That's incredibly powerful. And I feel it so much in what you're saying with like making the energetic commitment to source, to the universe, to use us as vessels for divine healing. And then the path is just going to unfold by itself almost. It's like the connection is made, and then, yeah, every step is just being revealed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you work a lot with women's health, and you have founded a women's festival. How has this become such an important pillar of your work?
I think that is quite unexplainable, and when I am saying that, it is like I have goosebumps all over, because there is like this force of nature, or it's like an ancient calling from all the ancestors and the great feminine awakening that is kind of like just calling for this to happen. And I am just like available to put in the work.
Exactly, the commitment, and then it just happens.
Yeah, so it's like a bigger calling, and I work together with one of my best friends to create this festival, and and we have been, our sisterhood connection also is kind of like rooted into the middle, how we have been so transparent with each other, and really meeting this sisterhood wounding so many times of comparison, of jealousy and judgment and all of that, and just really burning in the fire together, and just really being so transparent with each other and owning our own shit and coming back to love again and again and again and again. And that is the core of from where the festival have grown out from. And because there is just like this, how can I say it, the sisterhood wounding of how we have been backstabbing each other and all of that. And women turning against each other. We can trace that back to the witch burning, for example. To save yourself, you were pointing at your neighbor instead, and how the feminine power have been cut down through thousands of years, and how that is rooted inside of us, and now we can see all over the planet like the feminine is rising again. We are at the forefront of birthing a new world, because the old world is dying, the old world that is built on the masculine principles. Like in the ancient times, the women are the ones that we need each other, and we support each other to tend to the fire of life. And we were supporting each other in childbirth, in disease, we were keepers of the fire and the sisterhood and bleeding together and all of that. And the men were out there conquering land and going to war and all of that. And then how it is now is like the society is built on the masculine principles of conquering land and going to work and and the feminine force have been suppressed and violated for thousands of years. So there is like this inner remembrance and a deep calling of this force that wants to come out and through. So I think that is like the deeper calling that I can feel of why, because it's a lot of work to gather 140 women, and there is a lot of things that is coming up in that field also, like the layers of wounding are also triggered and projected out, especially when you are in a leader position like that. So it's just to come back to the deeper understanding of why, always coming back to the why, not the how, but the why.
That's so beautiful, and it's such an embodied part of your leadership to have walked the path yourself, and still continuing to walk the path as you're inviting all of these hundreds of women into the sacred space in the festival that you are creating. And it's so, like you're saying, with the divine feminine force of the planet, of Mother Earth that is rising right now, is like, how can we as individuals also start to bring more of this into our lives? Like, because we need both the masculine and the feminine, right? But the feminine has been suppressed. But how can we start to bring this balance back in for us to come back to unity again?
That is a very individual answer, because we all have our own path to walk, and we all have our unique medicine and our unique gifts and wounding, so it will be different for each and every one. But for sure, to bring back the feminine principles is also to return to nature. And in the modern society, how most people are in this like stress response all the time, going outward, and this is what is celebrated, the outgoing energy. So coming back into the body and listening to the body, and just taking a moment, especially for women, to land deeper into our bodies and to allow ourselves to be still and to listen. Because this state of constant stress, it affects so much of our nervous system and our health and the way that we are in the world. So just taking a moment to drop in, and maybe most people are like, but how do I do that? How do I connect with my womb? And then just place a hand and just bring your breath all the way down to your belly and allow your belly to relax. Yeah. And spend time in nature, in stillness. Put away the phone, put away the distractions, and just listen inside.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is it's such a big answer that I could give to that.
Yeah, no, but it's perfect because it's like returning to the simplicity of things. And I feel almost in this busy society that we're living in and conditioned by, we forget that sometimes simplicity is the way. It doesn't have to be more complicated than just like focusing the awareness and connecting back to Mother Earth. So I think it's beautiful, exactly what you said there. And yeah, we're also going to dive a little bit more into like our ancestral lineage and how that has affected us. But before that, I want to ask a little bit about your personal history around healing your womb space, because I know you have quite a fascinating story there to share, if you want to touch a little bit on that.
So I started, first I did the womb awakening teacher training that I did, and it was quite fascinating how with each model that we went through, it was like my life was reflecting so much of this, the patterns, the personal story, the pain tapes that was just running. And the more that I dived deep into that and just allowing all these waves of emotions to flush through and to heal and to open that space, because the womb is the portal where we gestate life and then we give birth. So that was like a 4-point for me to really go on that deep healing journey, and also to put up my boundaries to end this kind of like abusive relationships with my family that had been, I mean, when we grow up in a toxic or abusive environment, like I did with the masculine, it's like your body is in a constant fight and flight, so your nervous system is on high alert all the time, and you think that this is the normal state of your being. And in that state, it is very normal to cut off the deeper layers of the feminine power, like most people are living from here and up, and the breath is not going all the way down. So that was the beginning of the journey for me. And then a few years ago, in 2021, I think it was, I was diagnosed with cervical dysplasia, the most serious grade, which is sin 3. And yeah, and I remember like I was first at the doctor because I had gone through an abortion. And when you are when you get pregnant, it is like the hormones are shifting, and then the abortion, it's a bit like for the body to come back into balance. So I had a checkup then, and then they sent me to the hospital. And then in the hospital, because when you go to the pap smears at the doctor, they usually use like a brush. So they just take like a brush. So it's quite invasive, but still not super invasive. But and then I went to the hospital, and then they did this like where they have some kind of scissor thing and they cut apart.
Yeah.
And I remember they was like, yeah, so you have cervical dysplasia. It's like the most serious grade, and we will just put up a appointment so that you can cut away this thing, and you will never be able to give birth naturally again.
Yeah, that's a very harsh statement.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
a very tough message to receive.
And there was no alternative given, you know?
Yeah.
And I was sitting in the car afterwards, and I was bleeding, and I was like hysterically crying. It felt like I had been raped. And I just felt like in my despair, there was a deeper voice inside, because all this fear, you know, oh, cervical dysplasia, that means cervical cancer, that means I'm gonna die. All these fear programs, you know, but it was a deeper voice inside my womb that was like, you are not cutting in my sacred temple. No.
Wow.
You're not raping me with that.
Yeah.
And then, luckily for me at the time, I was living with my best friend, and she knew of some people that had healed themselves. And so she tipped me about this cervical wellness and Denelle Barbara. And so I went to her website, and she had done 8 years where she was going from scene 1 to scene 3, which is like from the
when you start getting the changes in the cells.
And then to scene 3, which is the most serious grade, which is the grade before cervical cancer, basically. She had used 8 years to heal herself, and she made this online program. And then I also knew of another woman that had also healed herself, and she contacted me with this doctor in the States that have also written a book and is doing this esoteric treatment. So that was my year of diving deep into the cervix, and I learned so much. And I healed myself in 1 year without ever. I was like, I'm not coming to any tests, fuck off, like I'm dealing with this myself. And it was such a profound journey, and it also helped me to awaken the power of my womb and my cervix, and to take the seat in my throne inside my deep pelvis. And the way that I stand in my life, the way that I move through life is completely different than it was before.
Wow.
So it was like an initiation, and I think everything in life is like this, that we can look at it from a place of being the victim. Oh, poor me, why is this happening to me? Or we can look at it like, okay, so this is happening, and what can I learn from it? And then it becomes an initiation into your personal growth. And
it becomes your magic and your medicine that you can give to the world. That's so powerful. Wow. And like the journey of, or because it sounds like when you got this message from your womb space after you was at the doctor's, there was this connection there already to like your inner voice that is coming from the womb. But how has that journey unfolded? Like how if you were to put words on the wisdom that is laying within every woman's womb, what is that power like? What can that connection support and give you?
Freedom, I would say, and to trust yourself, to trust your inner voice. I think that maybe for some listeners it can be a little bit abstract to say that it is the voice of the womb, but there is always like an inner, like we call it the magefølelse, or that you have
the gut feeling.
The gut feeling, yeah. It can be that easy to just listen, not to all this noise from the outside, but to the inner voice, which is most of the time just a whisper.
But then trusting that
Trusting
whisper.
that.
Yeah.
Instead of all the voices that are on the outside, mostly screaming. So, and that was also for me, like the doctors and my family and all the fear programs from the outside is like, no, you are gonna die, you cannot do this.
Yeah.
But it was like, my internal voice was like, yeah, I'm fucking afraid right now, but I need to do this because I don't want them to cut inside my sacred temple. It's the most sacred portal in my body.
Yeah.
You're not fucking touching it. Like,
no. Yeah, and that being connected to that power, it can change everything, like you experienced. And then what you said a little bit in the beginning as well was like connecting with the feminine force and the stillness and nature. It's like, I feel it's so easy to get wrapped up in the busyness of society that we start to freak out in the moments where there are stillness, and maybe in the stillness is where we can start to build this connection to this inner wisdom, because then we can actually start to listen and hear what it has to offer us, like this infinite intelligence that lives within the body. Is that like a practice that has been a part of your healing journey as well, to like connect more and more with this inner voice?
Yeah, for sure. And I think also many people are afraid to stop and for that stillness, because in that stillness you need to face yourself and all the emotions that have been suppressed. And that can be scary for some. It's much easier to keep running away from yourself and the deeper truth. So to really come into that stillness and into that, it also requires courage to meet yourself. Now, I had a lot of practice with all the 70 ayahuasca ceremonies and 20 years on the shamanic path.
Helps.
So that is always my go-to. I go within, not without. I don't call a friend to ask for advice, but I go to my womb and I go to nature and I listen. But of course, when you're faced with this kind of seriousness of a diagnosis, it is always good to seek out advice for someone that have walked the path before you. So that is why I was so lucky that I am surrounded by people that are transmuting true wisdom into the world. And then I found Danelle Barbara and the Cervical Wellness. So that's what I did. I did the Cervical Wellness course. I think it is like 12 weeks or something. But of course I use a lot of time for it, like a year. And then I was also followed up with this Dr. Nick Leroy in the States. And I did this esoteric treatment. And I also did self-cervix initiation, which was more about the sexuality and cervical orgasm. And I learned so much, like how the cervix is directly connected to the vagus nerve, which is the biggest nerve that goes through from the cervix, going through all these important and big organs, and then it end up back here in the brain. And if you are then living in a constant fight and flight, and it's like this fired up in the nervous system all the time, it's very usual for people then, including myself before, to you kind of like you squeeze the anus and you squeeze the pussy, and then you lose the contact with the ground, and then you are like in this stress.
Yeah, you lose your grounding. Yeah.
So that was one of the biggest hacks that I did, to just really land and just really feel the deep pelvis and to relax the muscles inside the vagina, and feeling that cord and really grounding into the earth. Just from that, when I was driving the car or when I was making food, or especially if there was like situation as a mother or as a in the daily life that you become a little bit, instead of going in there, you just like relax down, relax the pussy, and you breathe out through the pussy out. So it's like this deep landing in the pelvis.
Yeah. And I feel that whole connection as a woman and towards our own womb space is in so many ways very suppressed in our collective field. It's like we were talking about earlier with women not having seen their own vaginas, and because we're so disconnected, we are not learning from anyone that this is a way of living and something that can actually serve us in our lives. Like, and again, like the root being connected to our sexual energy, and the sexual energy being the force behind all of creation. Like, how is that also connected to this whole process, like unleashing your sexual energy as a healing force?
That was one of the first layers that I came to. It was stuck sexual energy that was not allowed to be expressed in the relationship that I was in at the time. It was not met and expressed, so it just became suppressed. Instead, there was a lot of love and friendship, but that deeper intimacy, it was not met. So then it became this kind of like belt of stagnated energy. And at the same time, a lot of stress. And I think that most women are carrying this. We can call it the witch wound, or we can call it like it's been thousands of years of, and still today, suppressing the female power and using like rape as a tool to break down a society. Because a woman that is fully connected and a woman that is fully in her feminine power and raw sexual expression, she's a force of nature that is just nurturing the whole village and standing strong as the warrior and as the mother and the nurturer and a protector of life itself.
Yeah.
And that, I think, it's why rape is systematically used in war, because if you break a woman, you also break the village.
Yeah.
So that was like the first layer was this like, the sexual energy that was not flowing freely. And one of my teachers is saying that the root of all disease is stuck sexual energy. Of course, there is a much broader and wider answer, but the sexual energy is the life force energy.
Yes.
And if it can flow freely throughout your body without hindering, and it's like the power and the wisdom and the flow, which is also attracting or reflecting in the outer world, is immensely powerful.
Yeah.
But I think many women are afraid of this because we have been shut down and raped and ridiculed and shamed for thousands of years. So there is like this holding and then to awaken that, to really step into that. It's I mean, that's also what I'm so inspired to help women to do now.
And I know for me in my personal journey, it's been a mix of liberating and overwhelming to realize that it is not just this lifetime that is impacting the blocks and stagnations of this sexual energy, and healing that wound within my own womb and in my own ancestral lineage, but also it's this present version of us says responsibility to keep on healing for the generations that are coming after us. But like, how would you say that the generations that has walked before us are still impacting the witch wounds that we are carrying within our womb today?
The witch wound is a very collective wound that is expressed differently for each woman. And I think that when we meet this wound very much when we fully step into our power, when we are launching a new project, or we are stepping into a new ground of expressing ourselves from our true self, then we can meet this. It's kind of like an intense fear that can be in the body, but then allowing it's a collective. And I think coming from Norway, we can see this very strongly, like how the wild Viking power, and now how the Norwegian society after the crucifixion of the Christianity came, and people are so like suppressed and neat. And you said something and I forgot that, because I was wanting to come with another answer. I forgot what you said now.
Like how, I think you answered it, but like how we are still carrying our ancestors' wound, and especially related to like the sexual energy. And I know we talked a little bit about earlier, like how the priestesses used to walk in a very empowered, like sovereign way, but as that became scary for people because the wild feminine is kind of not controllable, and then we got shut down, and then we have been living in that state for, I don't know, hundreds of years. But how this suppression is not just coming from this lifetime, but also from past lifetimes.
So as a woman, when you are pregnant with a child inside, the child inside your belly is already carrying her eggs that will birth her children again. So when you were in your mother's belly, or when your mother was in your grandmother's belly, you were in your mother's belly. So that is 3 generations inside the same belly. So we are coming as women from an unbroken lineage of cervix into cervix into cervix, birthing like that. And like 33,000 years ago, it was a lot of this high priestess energy on the earth, with temples and goddess worshipping and tantric teachings, and women that are both powerful and wealthy, and was initiated into the high priestess arts. And then systematically it has been broken down by cutting down the temples and suppressing women, especially the last 2000 years with Christianity, where we were told that to access God, you need to go to a priest, a male priest, and he can give you the message from God. You cannot access it yourself. And then following up from that, it was of course that if you have access to some kind of divine, like herbs or helping your sister in childbirth, you will be burned at the stake. So this terror and fear, I think it is in the cellular memory that we carry inside, which can influence and is influencing us, even if we are aware of it or not. And this was also another layer that I carried because I have been exposed to this kind of like witch hunt and attack from the masculine, from the father figures in my life in early childhood. So I experienced a lot of that witch wound also when I was growing up. When I was 15, it was like this situation of backstabbing also of the sisterhood, where I was kind of like an outcast from this little town in the north of Norway, and there was like a witch hunt. And so I have experienced that a lot, which was like, instead of breaking down, I became this rebel.
Yeah.
So it was the strength instead that came. But that is also the fight, no? Because you can have the freeze or the fight or the fawn, which is a trauma response, and I went into the fight response. And deeply rooted anger towards the masculine. So that was also another layer that I came to in this cervical healing. Was I did this 1 hour breathwork journey, where I was also breathing with the ancestors, and I could see this generational trauma that had been passed down for 5 generations. And in the journey, I just gave it back, and it was like this red hot, really angry energy that was in my pussy, that was in my root and my cervix. And in the breathwork, I just gave it back to my ancestors, and I'm not carrying this anymore. It's not mine to carry. And my body was like shaking, and I was crying and all of that. And after that, I have been completely different. Like there was something that was gone. Like there was this... And then it was a deeper relaxation. So we need to go through it and purge it out. We cannot avoid it.
No.
And I think this is what we have learned, that we just need to avoid. We need to be in this like oneness and the spiritual oneness and the love, you know, and you should not feel anything because, and it's like as a human, in the human experience, to come through the true oneness of unconditional love, we need to go through the personal story and purge all these emotions and energetical imprints that we are carrying from lineages and ancestors.
And that is how I feel about being a soul that has chosen to reincarnate in a physical body, because spirit doesn't have a nervous system, right? So spirit doesn't feel in the same way as our bodies has the potential to do. And a lot has shifted for me when I realized that me having all of these different responses that sometimes are not comfortable, like fight or freeze or being in deep grief and anger, it's like, no, it doesn't feel good, but it is a way for the soul to get to know itself on a deeper level because of how the body reacts to certain situations. So I feel it's so powerful that you're bringing up actually being in the body and feeling through all of these different things that arise when we choose to go on such a deep healing journey as you have walked yourself, and how if someone is at the state in their life where they know that they want to walk the path, but they don't necessarily know where to start or what to do, is there anything to tell someone in that situation to start to embark on a journey like this?
Again, it's a very big answer, because it depends what kind of situation you are in and what kind of what is the longing, and your path in this lifetime is very individual. But if I then can speak about the cervical healing journey, because there is so many women that are diagnosed with cervical dysplasia, and big pharma is just saying, yeah, we are just gonna cut away. So that is like the thing is that they just cut away, and then it comes back, and then you cut away a little bit more, and then you cut away a little bit more, and then suddenly they take your whole womb away.
Yeah, and then again, it's not allowing the body to process energetically. It's just on a surface level, kind of, with cutting it off, and then totally bypassing the energetics behind what your body actually is trying to tell you.
Yeah, because we are a holistic human. So now we have talked about the ancestral line and the sexual energy, and of course it is almost also on the hormonal level with the cervical healing, and it's also on the physical level. So yeah, the cervix is the birth portal in our body. And I didn't even know where the cervix was located almost, because we are not taught these things. The feminine genitalia and what is inside and how can we connect and how can we support, it's so much fear. So this is what I want to speak about, because we need to reclaim this wisdom as women and stop giving our power away to men in white coats or medical whatever.
Yeah.
And this is also in childbirth, and it is with our health also, that there is so many things that we can do to support ourselves. Yes, we can awaken our wild feminine and the sexuality, but also and landing in here into the pelvis. And the cervix is it's a portal of life, where we birth physical life. It is the part of us that from going from very, very small opening, it becomes like to birth a child.
Yeah, a literal human being.
Exactly. And this is the most powerful place in our body. And it's overlooked.
Completely.
Yeah. So, yes, I want to just speak a little bit about that, because in the cervix we have the downward energy that is going like this. Is like a torus, bioenergetical field that we also have around the planet, and we also have it around the heart, and this is like physics.
Yeah.
And this is the same around the cervix. So the movement is from the womb, going down through the cervix and coming to the cervical mouth, which is the cervical os, we call it. It's the mouth of the cervix. So inside the cervix, it is called the columnar cells. And then it comes to the mouth, and then it goes out like this, and it transforms here. So this is called the transformation zone. It transforms from the columnar cells to, wait one moment, squamous cells.
Yes.
and the transformation zone here. So this is the most delicate, vulnerable place of the cervix. And this is also where cervical dysplasia, abnormal cells, they come. And most women have, from time to time, abnormal cells on the cervix, and then we just heal it, and then it goes like that. Things that can abrupt this natural healing in the body is the HPV virus.
Yeah.
And but it is like over approximately 140 different types of HPV virus, and 95% of the human population are exposed to this virus throughout their life, and most people don't even notice that they have it. And then there is, I think, I don't remember the exact number, but maybe around 6 to 8 of these that are a bit dangerous, that can cause cervical cancer. And then there is the vaccine that doesn't even cover all the different types that can cause the cervical cancer. So when a woman is given this diagnosis of cervical dysplasia, it is like, yes, we're going to cut it away, or we will give you the vaccine. So that is one of the way that they are treating it, that we will give you a vaccine for a virus that you already have, or we're just going to cut it away, or there is also this freezing treatment.
Yeah, to like kill the cells or something.
No, it's just to cut it off, basically.
Okay, yeah.
But they use this freezing method instead
Okay.
of cutting it.
Yeah.
And also, like, because so many people have the HPV virus already, what will hinder it to really take root in your body is to have a strong immune system.
Yeah.
And that is on a physical level. And a strong immune system is like that you have clear boundaries,
Yeah.
and the virus is not going into your cells and starting to make
Exactly.
trouble. On a physical level, what you can do is to take different supplements, of course, to make your immune system healthy, especially the methylfolate. And most women only eat folate when they are pregnant, because it helps it strengthen the cell membranes that the virus cannot enter in and start to fuck up thing. Also, I did a lot of other things, the methylfolate, and I took a lot of Chinese mushrooms to help with the immune system. I took lion's mane, reishi, and
Yeah.
maitake, and other things, and
Yeah.
also like zinc, B12, and things that are just supporting to strengthen the immune system, because the body
Yeah.
will always turn back into balance, so we can support the body to come to balance.
Exactly. And I feel like many people have to end up in a situation where the body screams because you haven't listened while it whispered, maybe. Is working like this as, or like implementing these things as a lifestyle, something that you would recommend to every woman before it gets to the point where you have to do it because the body has gone into a state of like producing cancerous cells and these kind of things?
Yeah, so in that also, yes, absolutely. To support a healthy body by taking supplements and spending time in nature and spending time regulating your own nervous system, and also with the physical boundaries that are the immune system are like your fortress to all diseases. And then the question is, how is your emotional or energetical boundaries? Like,
Yeah.
And especially with sexual partners, like, are you owning your boundaries?
Yeah.
Giving yourself time, because that is another part. If you think about the cervix, it's such an amazing part of the female anatomy. Usually the cervix lays very low down in the vaginal canal, and then when you get aroused, it moves up in the cervix, in the vaginal canal, so it gives space for penetration.
Yeah.
And then the invitation for all women at home also to ask themselves, like, how many times have you allowed yourself to be penetrated before you were ready? And then you could feel this tug, this kind of like pain inside.
Yeah.
And that is the cervix that is saying, hey, I'm not ready yet. I have not moved out of the way. Give me a few minutes more.
Yeah.
And for a woman to be fully ready for penetration, it takes like between 20 to 45 minutes of foreplay and warm up.
Yeah.
So this is another way for us to keep the health of our cervix.
Yeah.
And I remember growing up, there was like this guy that they were bragging about. Yeah, I bottom up, you know. So then you can also think about like this hard.
Yeah, and it's so normalized. Like as women, we think that this is what we have to bring to someone for us to feel beautiful and worthy, and we just create like a sexual fundament for ourselves that is completely ignoring the boundaries of the body.
So that is like to have boundaries, to honor yourself and to have boundaries and just say, I'm not ready yet, you know, give me some more time, so that. And it's not only for the emotional heart or for you to feel safe with your partner, it's for the physical safety of your cervix, because this kind of behavior of premature penetration and too hard, too fast, it will create some kind of like micro trauma on the cervix and scar tissue also. And this can also be a part of why when you have cervical dysplasia, the body cannot heal itself because of this constant overriding your own boundaries.
Yeah.
So that is another way to look at it. And then we tapped on it earlier, but then we went away, so I want to come back to this about these boundaries and honoring it as your sacred temple. It's like when you are at your doctor's place, for example, and they just shove this speculum in and they just open you up, and it's kind of like, and then you're a little bit like painful afterwards. You feel like, fucking hell, what just happened, you know?
Yeah.
So the invitation is to do it yourself.
Yeah.
This was so funny because I started doing this, and it's even in my journal, like it was something wrong that I did. But I said I want to insert the speculum
yourself when
and
you're at the doctor's.
Yeah, and then just like holding, preparing, asking, telling her what is about to happen, so that she can relax, and then insert it slowly by yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
So this is something that we also did during my healing journey. I did all this like inner work and the activation and the meditation to meet her, to heal the ancestors, all of that. And that was from the cervicalwellness.com, Danelle Barbara. But then it was also with Dr. Nick Leroy that have written the book Putting a Target on HPV, I think it is called.
Yeah, I can link all of these links in the bio.
And that was the esoteric treatment. That is 3 very simple ingredients that I'm not going to name now because it needs to be high quality, it needs to be the right amount, and it's good to be followed up with someone. So But in that journey, my boyfriend at the time, he helped me with that, so that we put up this beautiful space, and with the fire and the candlelight, and then I would ask, and then I would insert it myself, and then he would open up the speculum, but not like whoop, but it's just like a little bit. Okay, now it comes one more, are you okay? And then breathing through it. Because to be exposed in that way, it is
very vulnerable.
For the body, like maybe we are used to overriding our own body and all of that, but for the body it's quite brutal. So to do it in a way so that your nervous system can be relaxed, and that your whole body and your whole being can be on board in this procedure, it makes all the difference. And then the question is also like, how many people have seen your pussy, even if it's the doctor or previous lovers, and have touched on your cervix, but have you seen yourself? Have you gazed into your own pussy and admired her? Have you touched your own cervix? And this is also like something that I'm questioning, how distant most women are from this, the most sacred, the most holy place in our body.
And it starts with the personal connection, and then we can move from a completely different place, moving into the situations that you're mentioning, being at the doctor's, starting to speak up the boundary about inserting the speculum oneself, and these kind of things. And I think it's a lot easier to move from that place when we establish that connection within ourselves.
Absolutely.
First.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it does not need to be difficult. So it's like just now for the listeners also, just to notice, like if you can breathe all the way down and kind of follow the breath all the way down from your head and down into your lower belly, and just feel the breath in your lower belly. Maybe put a hand there, and then consciously relaxing the muscles inside your vaginal canal, kind of like landing into this presence, to drop deeper down with relaxation and softness. And also to notice throughout the day, like if you are tensing the muscles inside, and can you drop deep and soften. That little hack there was like life transforming for me.
Wow. And I feel like it really starts in the small things, in like the things that is more easy to just do as a way of living, instead of having to sit down for 30 minutes a day, 2 times a day, and do this whole big thing, but starting to really implement, like in the small moments, these moments of connection, and how big difference that actually can make is profound.
Absolutely.
So I feel like this is really an invitation for the people listening that's on the journey of getting to know themselves and their own womb space, to invite in these like small pockets of just pure connection, and trusting that that energetic awareness and focus is enough to actually start to build a relationship that will build like any other relationship.
Absolutely. And then also to trust the journey. It's not a linear journey, it is a spiral journey. A journey into the unknown, I would say.
And then daring to trust in the unknown. And that the unknown has your back. And for anyone listening that are interested in some of the work that you do you want to share a little bit about ways to work with you and your upcoming retreats and things like this?
Yeah. And first I would like to say to all the women listening that if you have been diagnosed with cervical dysplasia, it is not a cancer diagnosis. It is the cervical dysplasia is the grade 1, 2 and 3, so that is like how much dysplasia or how much abnormal cells is on the cervix.
Yeah.
And it comes from the mouth of the cervix and it moves out. So for me, I had the grade 3.
Yeah.
My whole cervix was covered. It was red because I have taken picture of it. So I have documented the healing journey.
Yeah.
It was red, and this was also connected to the anger that I was carrying towards the masculine.
And you saw the red as well.
Yeah, yeah, and then now it was just completely healed. It took me 1 year. It took me 11 esoteric treatment of putting on these herbs directly on it. For 11 times it healed it.
Wow.
And also with the awakening journey that I have done. So it is not a death sentence if you get this cervical dysplasia diagnosis, and also to know that from sin 3 to full-blown cervical cancer, it might take around 15 to 20 years.
Yeah.
So you have time to heal.
Yeah.
It's not like you're gonna...
Yeah, and just now awakening the awareness in people that there are other options available.
Yes, absolutely. And this is the knowledge that I want to get out to people. There are alternatives.
Yes.
And we are gonna link all of this in the show notes. Both Dr. Nick Leroy and Cervical Wellness with Danelle. And how I am now supporting women is that I work as a tantra therapist. After I healed my the cervical healing and cervical awakening journey, I did a tantra therapist training and also intuitive rebirth training. So I'm now holding space for women one-to-one, where you can come and have a 3-hour session with me to really land in the body, to purge and to be held. So it can include both breath work, body work, de-armoring, ancestral work, inner child, and yoni mapping, yoni healing. And I am bringing in the intuitive rebirth also, where we can purge and go into the blocks in the body and to let it release and to initiate your what wants to come through you, even if it's the queen or if it's the whatever wants to come through. So that is the one-on-one sessions I do. I'm also doing regularly the cacao ceremonies in Oslo with ecstatic dance or shamanic trance dance or breath work and stuff like that. And then I have in 2 weeks coming up now the I Am Woman, I Am Goddess, which is a 1-year journey with 4 weekends where we go through the phases of the women, from childhood to preteen, mother, elder. We do womb awakening. I am working with another intimacy coach, which is also doing a lot of embodied work with tantra and sexual awakening and stuff like that.
Yeah. And what are the dates on this, since it's coming up in only 2 weeks?
Yeah, so I think the first one is 25th to 27th of October in 2024, and then we can link it in the show notes.
Yeah, rest will come.
And then one time a year we have the Sacred Womb Festival, Uniting Womanhood.
Yeah.
And this year we would like to, it's from 7th to 11th of May 2025 on Ängsbacka. And this year the theme is women's health.
Okay, wow.
So how we build the program is that we invite different teachers. There are like between 15 to 20 different workshop leaders
Yes.
over 5 days.
Yeah.
With a broad program.
And just the facilitators that you gather and the programs that I have experienced at the Sacred Womb myself is just priceless. It's magical. So highly recommend. highly recommend. Yeah.
Yeah. So then we invite both from the science and to have lectures that are based in science, you know, like detox and women's health and like not doulas but midwives and stuff like. So we have this actual science, and then we have the rituals with fire walk and sweat lodge and sex magic ritual maybe and stuff like that, and then also to the emotions, to heal the heart, to regulate the nervous system, all of that, and being with nature.
Yeah.
And then also all
It's
this
such
embodiment.
Some experience, and just being together with women. I remember it was not this summer, but the summer before, the first time I was at the Sacred Womb Festival, I just had moments in my sharing group. I was just crying. I was just like going through the mother wound, the sister wound, the witch wound, like really facing all of these wounds within myself that I have been living according to my whole life, and then just sitting in pure love and presence with your sisters in a space like that. It literally has rewritten stories in my DNA, like at a cellular level. So it's so profound.
I'm so happy to hear that. Yeah, it's very powerful when women come together to support each other to rise.
Yes.
And also to overcome the sisterhood wound and to take responsibility also for what we project on each other and take it back to ourselves.
Yeah.
This is what we want to heal, because when women are united, we birth a new world in harmony.
Yes.
And this is the flame that is moving forward. It is beyond our personal story.
Yeah. And this is what is happening at a collective level right now.
Yeah.
So standing up, taking the space to do this work, and for you to lead other people into this work is such a gift for everyone that gets to experience it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Wow. Is there any last things that your heart or your womb wants to share since we're here?
I would say to the women that are listening and that might feel that they are living in a box or a situation that feels too small for the magnificence of your soul and your journey and your full expression, is to trust your full expression and that transformation, to reclaim your power and seek out the support from other sisters also. And it is so normal also for women or for humans to identify with the past, to identify with the pain story, and allow that to identify who you are today. Oh, but this happened 15 years ago, and this is why I am like this today. Yes, of course, it has an impact, like we have been talking about. We are carrying the wounding from this lifetime and previous lifetimes in our cellular remembrance. And that is like a fact, but it does not need to be an excuse for us to live our purpose in this lifetime.
Yes.
To overcome the personal story and let our true selves be born.
Yes.
And to trust that we are at the right place at the right time. It's nothing wrong with us, and trusting the journey and the unfolding of the journey, and stop identifying with the pain
Yeah.
from the past,
Yeah.
and start identifying with who you want to be. So it's kind of like
Yes.
stepping into the future and remembering yourself,
Yes.
remembering your future self, and then stepping into that vision of who you want to be,
Yeah.
and what you can do today to integrate that into your being,
Yeah.
into your life.
Yeah.
And then you need to show up to do the work.
Can't avoid that one. No. Wow. Yeah. Oh, that hit really deep. It's like holding the vision of what you want to birth through you, rather than holding on to the versions and identities and stories of oneself that are not serving the collective and this new earth that we are birthing together as a big one.
Yes, exactly that.
Wow. Yes.
I think that was the perfect ending, huh?
Yeah. That was the moment. Wow. Okay. Thank you so much
Thank you.
for tuning in today, taking the time to serve and share in this way. It's been a pleasure having you. And for everyone listening, thank you so much. Sending you so much love. Until next time, we will link everything in the description of this episode so you can check it out and find Alva on all of her social media platforms. Yes. Mwah.